Hi, my name is Jason Henry. I am the CEO at The Well. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to take you through the poverty training that we have created, that we use to teach the community, to teach volunteers about how to view poverty through a little bit different lens. I want to start with this slide that shows our purpose statement. So our purpose as an organization, it starts with the word combining. And when you think about combining, I want you to think about unity and connection and bringing things together. And there's three things that we bring together as an organization. The first one is the love of Jesus. We do not hide behind the fact that we are a Christian organization and we love Jesus. And the reason we do what we do is because of Him. Now, what that means is we want to love people like Jesus loved people. The second thing that we combine is the help of our communities. So when you think about your community that you're in, there are tons of great resources in your community. There are churches, there are schools, there are other social service agencies, there's governmental agencies. We want to partner with those groups because we believe, man, if we are all working together, there's amazing things that can happen. The third thing that we combine, we call it the strength in every person. So anybody that comes into contact with The Well brings a strength, they bring a gift. It could come in a staff member, could come in a volunteer where they're bringing a talent that helps us serve. But I want you to also think about the people we serve. Often they will come in and say something like, I'm here because I'm an addict. I'm here because I'm a felon. That is not who that person is. We believe everybody is made in God's image, and that person has gifts and talents that they've never been called. We want to call out those gifts and talents as they go through a transformation and experiencing the well. And as we put those three things together, we believe that's where you find hope. And I can stand here as a Christian and say, I know where I find hope is only in Jesus. So the person that encounters and experiences the well, we want them to experience that love of Jesus. So let's talk about poverty for a minute. So I'm going to show you some pictures. So these are pictures. I want you just to pause for a minute and think about what you see in those pictures. What does poverty look like in those pictures? Now, I'm going to contend that what you see in this picture is what the world tells us poverty looks like. This is what I see in the newspapers. This is what I see on the evening news. I want to challenge you, for the sake of this training, I want to challenge you to think about poverty through a different lens. I want you to take a look at these pictures. So what you'll start to see is some very different things. You'll see a person that is on their knees. They are struggling. They are on their knees. You will see things that get to health, physical health. You'll see things that get to mental health. You'll see arguments. You'll see loss of transportation. You see Robin Williams. Robin Williams on the surface appeared to have everything, but clearly there was some emotional mental health going on there. And what I think is interesting is this picture in the middle here shows this nice, happy family. And it's really easy as we go through life to see the happy family and not see what's going on behind the scenes. So I want you to think about poverty through a little bit different lens, again, than what the world tells us poverty is. So when we look at poverty, there's really two types of poverty that we will look at when we're serving people. We'll ask ourselves the question, is this a person that's dealing with situational poverty? So situational poverty is maybe I have a health crisis that affects my ability to work, or maybe I lose a significant other that affects my ability to get things done. That is a situation, but I've got strong enough resources, I'll be able to navigate it once this situation passes and changes. The other type of poverty we deal with is generational poverty. So generational poverty is defined as poverty that has occurred for greater than 2 generations. And if you think about poverty, particularly in the U.S., in 1964, Lyndon Johnson said, we're going to eliminate poverty in the U.S. And we created tons and tons of social programs. Well, if you look at people that are now on social programs, some of them are 5th and 6th and probably even getting close to 7th generation being on the system. So the generational poverty has learned how to live a poverty type of lifestyle. Now, one of the pieces of material we use is a book called Helping Hurts. It's by Steve Corbett and Brian Fickert. And they do a great job of explaining just kind of how poverty cycles through communities and what it looks like. So they will talk about relief. Relief is there's something that happened. So I think about a natural disaster goes through an area. Organizations need to provide relief because people need food, water, shelter. They need the basic things to be able to survive during that time. But as soon as relief is kind of stabilized, then they need to start working on rehabilitation and development. And rehabilitation is getting back to that previous state you were at, while development is getting you beyond that previous state. And they say in their book, rehabilitation and development require the same basic intervention, and both require active participation. So when we work with people as an organization, we will use a term, you will receive transformation by participation. You will not experience transformation if we are doing all of the work. You have to be part of that journey. And the other thing I think is really interesting that they talk about in the book is they say the well-off, and I'm going to define that as people that are in the middle class that have a pretty stable environment that they're living in. They tend to define poverty in physical terms. We define it as our stuff. We define it as our resources. Whereas the poor, they tend to define it in psychological terms. So you will see and hear things like humiliation and shame, those types of things that really hold somebody emotionally where they're at. The second book that we use a lot is from Ruby Payne. It's called A Framework for Understanding Poverty. And Ruby did a bunch of research on differences between socioeconomic classes. And she originally did it in the school system, noticing kids and the different socioeconomic classes they went through. But she started to define things through these resources. So she talks about poverty is the extent to which an individual does without resources. So one of the things that we look at is we look at Ruby Payne's 11 resources when we try to view what's going on in a person's life. So these 11 resources starts with financial, so the money we have, how we use our money, emotional, mental and cognitive, so think that's kind of education, language and register, the words that we use when we interact with people, how we communicate. Social capital and support system, who are the people that are in my life? We look at physical health, we look at spiritual health. We want to understand integrity and trust. Can the people we interact with, are they trustworthy? Do they do what they say they were going to do? We want to understand motivation and persistence. We look at relationships and role models. So who are the people that are in my life that are different than me, that can influence me and challenge me? And then the last thing is hidden rules, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. So I want you to think about someone comes into our resource center, and generally they're looking for help with something. So they might come in because they can't pay a bill. So they've clearly come in with a financial challenge. Now, what we want to understand is there's more to this than the financial challenge. So we might ask something like, do you have any money? Do you have a bank account? Do you have a job? What we're trying to understand is really over here. Do you have a job is getting at what is your motivation, okay? Now, we might get the answer of, no, I don't have a job. That's going to trigger another question that might be, well, why don't you have a job? And the answer might be, I don't have a job because I care for an ailing parent. I watch my sister's kids. It could be a number of different things, but that now is pointing us over to who is in my life. So you can see what we're trying to do is paint the picture for that person through the questions we ask about all of their resources. And what Ruby's material will talk about is I need to have some level of stability in all of these resources really to navigate what is a relatively complicated world. So one of the exercises we do in a class called Getting Ahead that comes from Ruby Payne's organization is we talk about mental models specifically for socioeconomic classes. So when you think about socioeconomic classes, I want you to think about there is poverty, there is middle class, and there is wealth. And when you think about wealth, I want you to think probably more uber wealth, uber wealthy people that are in your communities. And when we create these mental models, I'm going to give you a picture. This picture around the circle represents things that someone in poverty, where they spend their time, what consumes their time. So I'm just going to point out a few of these. The one at the top here at 12 o'clock says agency time. People in poverty spend a lot of time navigating agencies. Now think about if you are working with an agency and you don't have transportation. It takes me time to coordinate transportation to get a ride. Generally, I might not show up on time because my ride is not reliable. So agency time takes much longer than I think about through my lens, which says I've got to go to an appointment at 11 o'clock. I'm going to leave early enough so I'm there 5 minutes early. I'm going to maximize the time in my appointment, and I'm going to be gone, and I'm going to move on. Someone in poverty does not navigate time that way. Now, some other things that are on here, you'll see transportation. They deal with entertainment. We'll talk about that as we go through this material. Lots of things around children and childcare and food. And really, when you look at this stuff, it's a lot of just how do I navigate taking care of the basic survival necessities of life. You'll see things on this side that get at navigating a legal system. Now, crime, criminal justice on this side is maybe I had a family member impacted by, they got arrested for a theft. So now we've got to navigate how do we get them out of jail, and that's really it. We need to get them out. We need to get them free. Some other things you'll see on here, you'll see down at the bottom, mental health and chemical dependency. You certainly see that take place in this socioeconomic class. Now you'll see one big word in the middle. That word is relationships. I want you to think about that word as what is the motivation? What is the driver for this socioeconomic class of people? And it is relationships. If I am in poverty, I need relationships because it helps me hold all my resources together. So I may not have reliable transportation, so I rely on my cousin to get me to work. I rely on my mom to get me to the store. That relationship is critical for me to hold my resources together. So I want you to kind of keep picturing things. So I've got an image up here of a spider web. If I came across a spider web in the woods and I put my hand on it, the whole thing is going to crumble around my hand. I want you to think about that with resources with someone that's in poverty. And let's look at it through the lens of a vehicle. So if I'm in poverty and something happens to my vehicle, it doesn't run, it's in an accident, it's damaged, whatever, I can't use my vehicle, what other resources are affected? Obviously, I can't get to work. It's limited my ability to get an income. But you've got to think beyond, I can't get to work because chances are my cousin is also riding with me. So it starts reaching out and impacting all of those other relationships. So now let's take a look kind of the same way through middle class. So same thing, around the circle, you are going to see figures and terms about where do people in middle class spend their time. So up at the top here you see careers. Folks in middle class, they work, and they think about career as not a job. They think about it as a place I can advance and I can grow and I can do other things. You can see the importance of education. Down the left-hand side, you'll see engaging your family in interests. So it's activities that kids are in. It is hobbies that you have. It's doing those things. You'll see down this side, it's about building resources. What am I doing to continue to build resources? So it's mortgage payments that we have to make because we've got a house. We're building a resource. It's how we invest in retirement. It's those types of things. You get down to the bottom and you'll see things like credit card debt. We did not talk about credit card debt on the poverty one because debt is usually I borrowed $20 from somebody. I owe that back to them. Generally, they cannot get credit. You'll see health on this side is more health and prevention. What are we doing to stay healthy? The other one that I will say is common between the two is mental health and chemical dependency. Really, when you look at that, that does not discriminate between social classes. That can always manifest itself across all of them. But one thing that is very common between all of these things is you have to do something to get to the next point. So that is what I'm going to go back to, what's the motivation for someone in middle class, and that is this word achievement. So I will often use the example of, I need to get good grades in high school so I can go to college. I need to go to college so I can get a good job. I need a good job so I can buy a house and care for a family and do those things. So when we make decisions in middle class, it's typically setting us up for the next decision. So just as a reminder, when you think about someone in poverty, their motivation is relationship. It's got to be about the people that are in my circle because they're helping me stay stable. When I'm in middle class, I am about achievement. I recognize I've got resources that I can do things that help move me to stability. So again, think about the image of this piece of pie that's missing is I lost my car. Now, if I'm in middle class, chances are I'm insured so I can get the car fixed. Chances are I can take it to the mechanic and get it fixed. Chances are probably that I have another vehicle I can use. So there's lots of different options, so their other resources can stay intact when something happens. Now the third one that I want to look at is wealth. So same kind of exercise. If you look around the circle, those are places we spend time when we're in wealth. And if you think about wealth, wealth is usually generated from something. It is a business, it could be family wealth that's tied to a business, but there is something that created and generates the wealth. So typically what you will see are things related to that. So you'll see things like being involved in boards, being involved in political things, oversight of corporate property, travel, event sponsorships, people that just go to events because their organization sponsored the event. So their things are more tied to maintaining and sustaining and growing that wealth. Now let's move to the motivation. Their motivation is connection. So if you think about connection, I want you to think about it this way. I may be connected to you because we have businesses that complement one another. I need your business. I need the connection with you because your business helps my business. And you need it to me because my business helps your business. Now, what I did not say is you and I are best of friends. The connection is what holds us together. So when you think about the image again, here's a big circle. If I punched out one of these little pieces of stained glass, chances are you wouldn't even recognize that my resources were affected when I lost that car. So at the level of wealth, resources just look so much different. Now, what I want to challenge you to think about is how does this work when you have a poverty socioeconomic class that is motivated by relationship. You have middle class that is motivated by achievement, and you have wealth that is motivated by connection. I want you to think about this through our legal system. So if you think about our politicians, who we elect to be our legislators, what social class do they come from? Generally, they will be coming from wealth. What are they motivated by? They are motivated by connection. So I am going to pass legislation that helps that connection I have with you because our businesses complement one another, or our organizations complement one another. Now, the legislator does not write the rules. So once legislation is passed, it's going to get handed into the bureaucracy to write the rules. What social class sits in the rule writing position? That would be the middle class. What are they motivated by? They're motivated by, when something happens, I've got to do this, I've got to do this, I've got to do this. It's that achievement-based mindset. And I challenge you to think about who is most penalized by our legal system. It's the people that are in the poverty class. They have no idea how to navigate that set of rules because their focus is relationship. I'm just trying to navigate the day. I'm just trying to have my means met today. So significant difference between how that works inside of what I'm going to call the system, what I'm going to define as the system. Now I want to give you a really simple client type of example of that. So we used to meet at a location, and it was kind of slow for us one day at the resource center, and I stepped out onto the curb because there were always people gathering out in this community outside of this organization that was serving them. And I just started talking to this gentleman that was there. And I kind of introduced myself, asked him who he was, and we chatted a little bit. And I asked him, I said, "What are you here for? Why are you here?" And he said, "Well, I'm waiting here today because so-and-so might come here to pick me up and might have some work for me to do." Okay? So what I hear in that is, here is someone who does not have a regular paycheck. So they're waiting for so-and-so to show up to provide them work so they can get paid cash to do it. That's how they navigate the working world. Now that's going to create another set of questions for me, that is, something must have happened to this person that they will not work at a place they can get a paycheck. And generally what's happened is they can't get a paycheck because they've got so many garnishments against that if I earn $100, I'm only going to get $50. So the garnishments come as a result of I got in trouble somewhere along the line. So I'm asking this gentleman these questions, and he's probably in his mid-50s at the time, and he said, "You know, Jason, when I was a young guy, when I was a teenager, I really liked driving cars really fast." He said, "I got myself in a little bit of trouble and got myself some fines, and he said I could never really get ahead of those fines that were going on." And I don't know if you realize this or not, but when somebody gets in trouble with something that is really a state benefit that they're getting, so the use of a car, being able to have a driver's license, being able to register your vehicle, those are all benefits we get from the state. So if I am in trouble with the law, they're going to start pulling those benefits away from me. So one of the first benefits that they take away from me is my ability to register a vehicle. It's that little sticker that goes on your license plate. So if I'm in poverty and I've got a car and I don't have the money to pay my registration on my vehicle, what do? Well, what I don't do is sell the car. What I do is continue to drive the car. And eventually I could get into trouble again, or eventually the car's going to quit working and I won't be able to get another car because I can't even get a license plate for it. So you can see where this will just kind of continue to spiral if you don't know how to navigate that system. And the thing that really struck me after talking to this gentleman for 15 minutes, one of the very last things he said to me was, he said, "Jason, I can't even get a fishing license in this state." So we have taken away every ability this man has to make things better for himself. So at the well, what we are trying to do is help them navigate those things that have broken down and help them build resources back up. Now, one of the other things that we talk a lot about are hidden rules. And here's what a hidden rule is. A hidden rule is an unspoken cue or habit of a group. So that too comes from the Ruby Payne material. And really our hidden rules come out of the environment that we grew up in. So I grew up in an environment where humor is highly valued. And humor is not of the clean joke variety. It can be inappropriate at times. So imagine taking that humor into a corporate, very structured setting. That would probably not go over very well in the boardroom. That is a difference in hidden rules between social classes. So these hidden rules, it's really important to understand how those hidden rules will affect me when I go out. So again, they develop as a result of where we spend our time, how we grew up influences our hidden rules, and they're going to vary based on our social class. So this slide just gives varying different levels of things that hidden rules are built around. So I'm just going to share a few examples with you. So money. would be one of the things. So if I am in middle class, what I do with my money is I manage it. I manage it because I've got this achievement-based mindset. I want to take my kids on vacation next year. I better start saving this year so I can do that next year. I'm planning for it, right? Money in wealth, money is to be conserved and it's to be invested because I want it to be there for future generations, right? When I think of money for poverty, money is to be used or to be spent because I don't know if I'll have it tomorrow. So what you will see with somebody in poverty is they will always be exchanging money between one another. I remember early on in one of the classes that we did at the Well, we were talking about hidden rules and we were talking about these differences between social classes, and one of the students in our class was sitting at her table and she was just shaking her head. And I kind of paused the class and I asked her, I said, hey, what's going on? And she said, well, my brother this morning asked me for 20 bucks for gas. Said I didn't think about it all, reached in my purse and I gave him 20 bucks. And I said, well, that's great. You have a great relationship with your brother that you guys can do that. And she said, Jason, what you don't understand is my rent is due tomorrow and I don't have the money to pay it. Her relationship with her brother trumped the stability she would gain from paying her rent. Different look at values, okay? A couple other ones that are up here. We talked a little bit earlier about personality. When I'm in poverty, humor, who I am through how I behave and communicate, that is my identity. That is my personality, right? In the middle class, what we use our personality for is we use it for acquiring, maybe it's a job. Maybe it is a position with a group. Maybe it's just for stability, but it's tied back to achievement. And if I am in wealth, my personality is used, again, it's for connections. Some other things that are on here, time is one of them. In middle class, we look at time as future decisions are the most important, and we weigh that against impacts if we don't make that decision. On wealth for time, it's really about traditions. It's really about how that family kind of came together, what their experience is. If I'm in poverty, time, it is about the now. It is about what I need now. How do I navigate this now? They are constantly living in the moment. They're not thinking about tomorrow. They're not thinking about next year. They're not thinking about the past. They're thinking about right now. Some other ones on here are things like language. So in the middle class, we use formal register. So I'm doing this training right now as formal register. We started at a beginning point and we're working our way to an end point. It is, you read the first chapter of the book until you get to the end. If you are someone that is in poverty, generally you have to think about that in verse. They typically start with the last chapter of the book and then they fill in all of the stories that get you up to it. So that circular communication can be really, really difficult. I want you to think about it as you go to the doctor. And the doctor said, tell me where it hurts. And instead of the person saying, my knee hurts here, they say, yeah, I hurt my knee back in 1964. Then I hurt it again in 1970. And then in 1980, they're never answering the question on where their knee hurts. They're telling them really the history of the knee. Can you imagine how frustrating that would be if your question was, tell me where your knee hurts? So it's important to understand those differences in communication styles when you're interacting. A couple of other things on here, family structure. People in poverty tend to be very matriarchal. Mama calls all the shots. People in the middle class tend to be very patriarchal. And when you look at wealth, honestly, it could be patriarchal or matriarchal. It really comes down to where the wealth comes from, what part of the family the wealth comes from. So there are lots of things. I would encourage you to research hidden rules. Just go Google hidden rules, and it will give you some distinctly different views of how poverty, how the difference between poverty, middle class, and wealth can impact how they navigate this world. Now, the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to have you watch a video. And this video is from Desiree. Desiree was one of the very first Works employees that we hired at the Well. And Desiree is telling her story. She came from a background that had lots of struggles, but I want you to listen for what are some of the things that Desiree is saying that you would say fall into the lane of this is kind of some poverty characteristics, this is some middle class characteristics, and really how she is navigating life. So a video takes about 3 minutes, and we'll come back and visit after the video.
Most of my past is spent in addiction, abandonment, abuse, just a world of bad choices, really. I tried to recover on a few different occasions, but I always went back to wherever it was I came from, to whoever it was I left behind. Or, of course, when my mom died, that was it. I was like, there's no God, you know. And I continued to get high and run the streets. I got pregnant with my first son, Braden, when I was 19. I ended up signing over guardianship to Braden to get DHS off my back, which in turn gave me the excuse to continue getting messed up. But then I got pregnant with Grayson. I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't want to keep him. I didn't want to adopt him out. I didn't want to be pregnant. I just wanted to keep getting. I was over it, you know. And then all of a sudden one day, I think I was about 6 months pregnant, and I was like, you know what? I want this baby. I want to keep this baby. I want to do what's right by my kids. I want to do what's right by me. And this time I decided to come to Pella because the people I'm connected to, they're all connected in Pella between 3rd and the Well. And Karen pretty much voted for everybody. She said, y'all are going to adopt me in. And so, and that's just what they've done here, man. Because of them, because of the Well here, I still have my home, you know, because I can't afford to live, you know, where I live. I'm a single mom supporting my almost 3-year-old. The Well has taught me family, what it means to truly have people that care. Coming from a place of hate, fear, struggle. It's so real. And out of treatment, I graduated treatment in February. Had I not come to Pella, had I not come to the Well, I can't say I'd be here. I just feel in my heart that, you know, this is where I'm supposed to be. The people are fantastic. I just feel that there's just so much opportunity for me here. Even when I don't see it, the moment may seem hopeless. Somehow or another, somebody on the staff has managed to pull me out of it. So it's been, there aren't words that can explain the feeling I feel when I'm here. The feeling of being a part of, like, I'm not just an employee here. I'm family, and I feel that. And they're the same way with everybody that comes in too. You know, you just, their front hall matches their back hall, so to speak. Yeah, I mean, really, I wouldn't be anywhere without being here. This place has done so much for me in just a few months.
So as you watch that video, you would have heard Desiree talk about things like, things fell apart when my mom died, right? Matriarchal household. She said, I gave up rights to my son to get DHS off my back. DHS, set of rules. If you're not meeting this set of rules, you can't have your child. But you also hear her really emphasizing throughout the whole thing, I connected with the Well because of relationship, because of connection. We connect with Des because we love Des, we care Des, we walk with Des, we journey with her. That is really the goal of the Well. We can't do that if we are solely looking through the lens of middle class. And I will say, as an organization, our goal isn't to move someone from poverty to middle class to wealth. That is not our goal. Our goal is to meet people where they are at, understand there are differences, teach people about those differences, teach people you might be struggling at work because of these things, because of this. We want to teach people why that is. Desiree had the opportunity to learn that through our work program and has found herself in more stable places as life journeys on. So we are thankful that you have gone through this poverty training. I always want to encourage people to plug in, engage with the well, come visit, come tour, come see what we do. I guarantee you your life will be impacted by it. So thank you much.